if I'm not mistaken, I've taken eight hits last season.
All right.
So yeah, that's I think it's I'm not sure whether that's a lot or not, but I
So is
think
that
that's
32
pretty
points
average.
or 8 points? Sorry.
32 points.
Okay.
30
Mm-hmm.
points, right?
Yep.
So I presume that's probably about average, isn't it? I think
Yep.
having doing that about 8 times is probably, obviously it is needed,
Mm-hmm.
as you go through the seasons for obvious reasons. So yeah, I think I was definitely above the average that season. So next question is, what surprised you about the Premier League this season?
The biggest surprise for me, and I think it's also for most of the people that are playing FPL, is the amount of penalties so far this season.
Yeah.
It's pretty insane. I'm quite surprised, to be honest. I mean, like, yeah, obviously, because it's the question is what surprises you. But I was looking back at last season where we had the restart and there weren't any fans in the stadium. I don't think any much has changed since then. It's just somehow this season so far there are just
It's
so
this
many
handball
penalties.
rule.
Yeah, especially the handball rule. It's quite ridiculous, to be honest. I've seen the VAR and some of the decisions being given. There's no way they can remove their hand at that situation, or their
Yeah.
arm. So it's quite ridiculous. But I've heard the FA asking the referees to be slightly more lenient coming week. So who knows?
Is that influencing your picks as well? Is it influencing you to get people in that take the pens?
I confess it does. I mean, who wouldn't be attracted to those prospects, But yeah, I mean, penalty takers are always they always have a slight advantage over other players, especially the ones that are bossing the attack.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The ones bossing the attack,
it's
definitely.
It's quite interesting what you
No
said,
way.
Joe, about the attendance as well, about the fans being there. It's kind of interesting to see if they've have an overall effect on some of the teams, like who rely on that that the crowd to like kind of
Like Sheffield
like boost
United.
them on, like Man City and those teams there, and whether they've been affected by it, just not having their fans there to kind of do what they do week after week, So yeah, that's a good point.
Man City.
Yeah,
I thought you mentioned about Man City and about the fans. People would just joke that Man City they don't have an effect because their, their
Not a real
stadiums are
one.
always empty.
We
Yeah.
take that back for all of you Man City fans out there. We're only kidding. You kind of fans, are you?
okay. Next question is have you used your triple captain, and when do you think is the best time to activate this?
For me, I'm kind of old school. I usually only use my triple captain during a double game week.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. I think last season I've used my triple captain on Salah on Liverpool's double game week. So that worked out pretty good. At the end, I had I think about is it 48 points, I think.
Oh,
Oh,
nice. From
Yeah.
Salah.
So that yeah
From that
on
one player.
Salah. I mean
Yeah.
that was the game week where those triple captain on Mane had a huge headache.
I think that may have been me, yeah. But I guess what you're saying, though, is the triple captain, double game week, but make sure
Yeah.
it's a player that's going to play both times. Because sometimes
Yeah.
if Man City does the Pep rotation and it doesn't work for both game weeks, but Liverpool generally play the same team
Yeah.
week in, week out.
Yep, exactly. My take on double game week is that they have two chances to do well.
Mhm.
So it's just you try to put your player out there. The more chances they have, the higher the expected points will be.
Exactly. Yeah. Also, it depends on obviously which team they're playing as well, because that can always bite you in the bottom, so to speak. I was going to ask you as well about along the lines of like like tripling captains and those bonus cards, about whether you've used your free hit yet. And if not, when do you think the best time is to activate that free hit?
For me, I've only used my wildcard so far. Free hit I usually use it also at double game weeks.
Yeah.
Because I want to have like 11, at least 9 double game week players. So a free hit will be good for that. Especially, if their fixtures before and after the double game week are more tricky. So you can just bring them in, get their points, and kick them out. So that will be a perfect chip to use for that. So usually I'll use it on the double game week as well.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I see where you're coming from there.
The other thing is sometimes, right, you used to get 1 week where there'd be like maybe just four fixtures and maybe just 8 teams playing. And a lot of people get tempted to use the free hit there. You feel like that's not the time to use it. It's way much better for the double.
It really depends, It really depends on the fixtures that they have before the blank and after the blank. Sometimes it might be worth using the free hit chip during the blank game week because, the advantage works both ways. Some managers will probably only have 9 players on that blank game week, and if you have 11, then the advantage is there. And so for me it worked both ways. But I would if you ask me to choose, I would prefer to use it on a double. But it is also valid to be used on a blank game week. But one thing special last season because of the COVID and because of the lockdown and things like that. So I used it on my final game week, where I just, want to have fun, just pick players based on fixtures, and I use it on the game week 38 last season.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I think last year was definitely very different, but generally I think I'm with you on the double game week being better, and just be aware for that blank game week to try and see it coming in advance. If 3 weeks out there's going to be just 8 fixtures or 4 fixtures and 8 teams, get it in there.
Yep.
Gents, we're going to need to speed ahead, full pace. Russ, next question.
Okay, so which positions do you try and to save money in your team so you can invest more elsewhere? What do you think, Joe?
For me, because we have so many midfield options this season, we have the big hitters, we have the premiums, we also have the great budget players. Yeah. So I so far this season I probably saved a little bit on especially the 4th midfielder and probably some for the 5th midfielder. So I usually save a little bit on that. So far this season, and I put some into the forward lineups because most of the forwards are also penalty takers.
It's interesting. This is a question that's kind of like where you're saying that. Is there any particular format you usually use? Do you have always a certain amount of defence and midfield and attack, or do you change it around each week?
For me, I've always been a fan of the 3-4-3.
Okay.
But so far this season, because of COVID and because of the amount of uncertainties happening, especially after the international games. So currently, during my wildcard, I've actually put more on my bench. I've gotten players that actually play week in, week out on the bench, and also they have good potential based on fixtures. So I can easily switch between 3-5-2 and 3-4-3. And if there are any players injured or COVID, like the latest news is Sadio Mane is positive of COVID-19.
Yeah, I heard.
So many teams are quite messed up because of that. So that's why I'm putting on a stronger bench so far this season. Usually I don't do that, but I'm currently doing that.
That's it. Do you do the same with your keepers as well? Do you have 2 pretty strong keepers, or do you spend a lot on one keeper and just have the cheapest of the cheapest? So basically rely on one keeper.
For me, currently, I have only one keeper, but my second keeper is his deputy. So at least if he's out, then I have the next keeper playing.
So you choose the team. Yeah, that's smart. And you keep
Cool.
that for the
All
whole
right.
season?
Currently, yes, hoping to do that because you usually for keepers, I wouldn't. Last season I did is I spent too much on keepers. This season I'll try to only switch keepers if necessary during the wildcard.
Right. Nice one. All right. Next question is: how long each week do you spend planning your team for an upcoming game? For some people, just like end up sitting on the toilet and doing it like.
Yeah, Ricky Pellegrini does that. It takes him 45 minutes each week on the toilet.
Or some people can be up all night, night before trying to get their team right. I mean, how long do you spend on your team?
Usually what I do is after each game week I will check some of the highlights and see who did well and who doesn't and check their fixtures. So you usually after the game week I will look at potential transfers. Probably that's what I usually do during the weekend because during the weekday quite busy and try hard to keep up. So probably I would say 30 minutes a day.
Right.
Or in 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's about it.
All right, that's interesting. So, are you either one of these people that after like the game week, can you do absolutely atrociously? You kind of go, you kind of like literally change your team around, or are you someone that just waits until like the last minute to change it?
I had an interesting stat last season where one of the Twitter accounts did an analysis on my team. He gave me the award for the most impatient manager. So 60% of my transfers last season, I think, based on his analysis, is done. I think before the midweek of the game week or something like that. So I tend to pull the trigger early, irregardless of team news. I would try to chase the price changes. So I probably would still do that this season.
Yeah. So did you do your wildly on Monday evening after the game or Tuesday morning?
Sometimes I even do the transfers during the match. It's like, oh no, this player is crap. Kick him out, throw him out. Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. Cheers for that, Joe. Couple more questions. If you had one tip that would help people instantly do better on FPL, what would it be?
I would say trust your gut.
Right. Yeah.
I'm more of an eye test kind of person rather than stats. I know some uses stats mainly, but I uses the eye tests mainly, and also I rely on other people's eye tests before using the stats.
That's good to know. Yeah, I think a lot of people believe that as well, don't they? Rather than going through form. I mean, this season is a prime example, isn't it? Where basically anything can happen. All right, Jimmy.
Exactly.
Jimmy Ferg, I'm going to pass it over to you to ask the last few questions.
Excellent, thanks, Captain Russ. So, Joe, I think we have time maybe for a couple of last questions. One that I wanted to ask you is: do you plan out your transfers for the entire season, or do you look at the three upcoming fixtures, or are you just looking at the next game week?
I'm in between the next game week and 3 to 4 game weeks. I usually don't look at the whole season. I don't even look at their fixtures the whole season, but usually I look at most 4 to 5 game weeks.
Excellent. And what's your plan on choosing your captain? Do you set and forget, so you keep the same captain the whole season, or you change it every game week?
I tend to change it almost every game week based on their fixtures and their form. Usually I'm more of a risk-averse kind of manager, so I'll probably stick to the safer bet. Players like KDB or Salah, especially for this coming game week.
Superb. Thank you, FPL Joe. A couple of last questions here. And one thing that I'm very interested to find out is if you had to give the 3 players this year that you should hold in your team for the whole season, which 3 players would they be?
Okay, I've given some thought on this. I probably wouldn't. It's probably hard to tell for now, but based on what I currently am looking at, how these players play and things like that, probably the first on my list would probably be Salah.
Yeah.
Because this guy, you can see the way he plays. intensity. You know, he's really gunning for it. I mean, personally, I think he was probably